Hello everybody. Guess what? The power's out! We've been having thunderstorms tonight and the wind came up really hard and knocked our power out. Yay. There's a weird spot I can see on the screen. I don't know if y'all can see it or not. It's like right at my chin. I don't know what it is, but it seems like if I move one way, it's still there, and if I move the other, it disappears. So I don't know. Got candle burning behind me. Maybe it has something to do with that. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to attempt, I got enough light coming off the screen of the computer, I'm going to attempt to talk about Compass. I don't normally do actual book reviews. Maybe it's something I should start. I don't know. If you like this one, let me know, and maybe I can review more random books. This one, Compass by Murray Lee, I got as an ARC from Publirati. It's due out the end of September, I believe the 27th, which of course, I can't see in the dark. Yeah, September 27th is when it's due out. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought this was pretty good. It's a debut. The author is... I've got a flashlight here somewhere. Maybe I can read the back with the flashlight. This is definitely a unique experience for us. On this channel, anyway. Still a shit show of a video, but, let's see. The author, Murray Lee, is a doctor and teacher of medicine. For over 15 years, he has served as the regular visiting physician for Nunavut, a traditional Inuit community on the Arctic Circle, whose people, culture, and geography greatly inform the setting and character of Compass, his debut novel. What? Of course he has to act weird because the lights are out. Yeah. So, that gives you a little bit of an idea. The setting is up in the Arctic, Canada. An Inuit village called... I'm struggling with the pronunciation, so I am very sorry if you happen to speak this particular language. I don't. They put a lot of Q's in the words. Does it say on the back what the name of the village is? No, that would be too easy. I should probably read the thing on the back, the blurb on the back, so that y'all know what they're saying the book is about, and then I'll tell you what I say the book is about. What is the name of the village? And I can't remember. I finished this book a couple weeks ago. And I kept thinking, I should make a video, and then it just didn't happen. Now that I don't have anything else that I can really do, because the power's off, I'm sitting here going, well, now what do now what do I do? Let's make a video, because doesn't everybody wait till the power's off to make videos? What is the name of the village? It begins with an I think. If I say it's an I, it's going to be something else. There's a Q in it. I know there's a Q in it. I think it ends with a Q. Iviliq. Iviliiq. Which isn't spelled like anything that I'm familiar with. So it's definitely a Nunavut Inuit type word. Okay, so the blurb on the back says, we can't all be heroes. Some try and succeed, others posture and pretend, and a few, just a few, set off on their hero's quest only to discover that failure was within them all along. Compass recounts the adventures of a man who has made a career traveling the world, shilling stories about historic expeditions and explorers for major geographic magazine. Called out on his dishonesty, he sets out on an adventure of his own, an ill-advised and poorly planned trip to the Arctic floe edge under the disorienting 24-hour summer sun. When the ice breaks and his guide disappears, the narrator ends up alone and adrift in the hostile northern sea. He draws on his knowledge of historic expeditions to craft his own inept attempt at survival. As time passes and he becomes increasingly irrational, his obsession with Sedna, the Inuit goddess of the sea, becomes terrifyingly real. Part Life of Pi, part Into the Wild, Compass draws heavily on true historical adventures, Inuit mythology, and the Arctic setting. Okay. Yeah, it does all that. The main character, we never find out his real name. Everybody calls him Guy. As in that guy. They don't bother to learn his name because they figure he's not going to stick around long enough. And, if he survives his quest, he, is going to leave anyway. So why bother? He's not part of the community. So he's just called Guy. Everybody calls him Guy. Everybody knows who he is because he's the outsider. So in the village, the first half is setting up the second half, obviously. But the first half, he has a guide. He gets to the village. He meets the guide. All the townspeople know who he is because he's that guy. He preps for the actual trip out to the edge of the ice floe. Which, when it says he was called out on his dishonesty, he's talking to another academic, and the person says, "You've never been out to the edge, have you?" And he's like, "Well, no." He's like, "I could tell because of the way you describe it. You can't give any real detail, you just give kind of broad strokes, right?" So he's going to go out to the floe edge. And he has to do it right now because it's in between assignments and speaking engagements, what have you. So he only has a short window of when he can go. Never mind the fact it's probably not the best time to go. It's summer in the Arctic, which means the sun is 24 hours. It's very disorienting. He doesn't know day from night anymore. Basically, he's losing his mind because he's not sleeping properly. But they get everything together, they pack stuff up, and he has a guide named Simone, I guess is how you would pronounce it. I called him Simon all the way through the book because I wasn't sure how to pronounce the actual name. To me it looked French, but it may just be, the Inuit version of Simon. Part of the time they call him Sim. But it's spelled kind of like Simeone. I read it as Simon all the way through just to keep my sanity because I didn't know how to pronounce it, so I turned it into something I could pronounce, which is probably not a good thing. It does take away from the actual culture that's being represented, and I'm sorry for that, but I didn't know how else to read it and still understand what was going on. There is a glossary in here, but of course it doesn't have names in it. It has like the words for various items that come up, and with all the I's and Q's and stuff in there, it's hard when you're not familiar with those languages, with those spellings, to try to figure out what's going on. I was able to figure out most of the time what he was talking about. He was pretty good about explaining. He'll say the word and then explain what it is, so that's pretty good. But anyway, Guy and Sim set off on this journey to the floe edge. And they get pretty much to it, and something happens, and Guy ends up having to fend for himself. I'm trying not to give too many spoilers, but it is in the blurb, so you know that he ends up on his own. And during this time he's on his own, he has he knows he has very limited food. He doesn't know what time it is or anything, so he doesn't know if it's day or night, how long that he's been there, how how long has he slept, how long has it been since he last ate anything. So he's really struggling. And it's taking a toll on the mental stuff too. He's definitely losing his mind. He believes he's being talked to by seals. There's this group of seals that come up and they taunt him and make fun of him and threaten him. And yeah, he's just really worked up over these seals. But they are kind of a comic relief as well. Simon was funny as hell. I really enjoyed him as a character. Guy, he was just a bundle of nerves and anxiety, especially once he was on his own. And there is a myth about this like sea goddess named Sedna. Apparently she lived with her father and there was this fight and somehow she lost her fingers and the fingers became all the creatures of the sea and she went into the sea and became kind of like a mermaid, but don't call her a mermaid. She doesn't want to be called a mermaid. So she's this entity, who is very mermaid-like. She has like the tail and everything, supposedly. And there's a representation of her, like a carving that he hides in his hotel room door, dresser drawer with his dirty socks. Whatever, it's bizarre. Anyway, he believes that she's out to get him. It's crazy. And it reminded me of Jack London stories, where there's a person and they're isolated and alone and stuff happens to them and they have to survive. And that's what's going on with Guy. He's isolated and alone and he has to figure out how to survive. Well, time is very disorienting in this book. I mean, even I was like, I don't even know what day or time it is anymore because he's so confused and it's coming through in the story that time pretty much doesn't exist for him anymore. And he figures out like a way to do a clock. And he thinks it's great. You know, he's figured out time. Only to find out that as the sun is going around, or as the earth is going around the sun and rotating and everything, so is the little ice floe he's on. So when it gets to a certain point, it's like time starts backing up and he can't figure out why until he realizes that not only is the earth spinning, but he's spinning too. And then he's like, well, I don't know, have I eaten today's rations or not? Or, because he figures out like how much food he's got to last how much time. And if he eats like an orange, then 12 hours later he can eat some crackers and a sardine. It's like real great food. I don't know why he doesn't try fishing. Obviously, if there's seals, there's fish, because seals have to eat something. But he never tries fishing, which kind of, I don't know, seems to me that would be one of the things you would try to do, because you're going to starve. Anyway, there's a lot of things where he's trying to figure out time, and he's trying to figure out, when he should eat and when he should sleep. And his ideas are not terrible. They're not great. Obviously, he has no clue what to do to survive. But his ideas aren't completely off the realm of possibility. I mean, yeah, you could make a sundial type thing to track time. And that's what he tried. Until he realized that he was spinning as well as everything else, and that was throwing everything off. So when he thought he'd been up for 12 hours, he may have only been up for 3 or 4 hours. But in the cold, in the Arctic, in the snow and ice and just general nastiness of Arctic weather, and the lack of day and night because the sun never goes down in the summer, he had no idea. He was completely clueless. And he ended up destroying the sled. It had a different name, but it's a sled, like a dog sled kind of thing, but he didn't have a dog. They had a couple snowmobiles, which things happened and he no longer had the snowmobiles. It was just one thing after another, and this poor guy, how's he going to survive, right? The ending kind of threw me a little bit. A little bit of a twist. I guess it would be safe to say it's not really a spoiler necessarily that he survived, because the way he opens the story is like he's telling you his story. So obviously he survived because he's the one telling the story. And, I mean, talk about an unreliable narrator. 100% unreliable narrator. There is a walrus in the story, and he does speak. Wow, okay. I wasn't talking about you! He does speak, but he's only in like 1, maybe 2 scenes. He's like the Sedna's emissary, and he comes and says something, Sedna wants you out of here now, basically. And he's like, how can I leave? I'm stuck on this ice floe. I can't go anywhere. I have no way to get back to the mainland. I'm stuck on this chunk of ice that has broken off. And don't care. Sedna says you gotta leave. Not my problem. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It took me a little while to read, but then I was stumbling over some of the words. And it's not just the Inuit stuff that was difficult. This author, you can tell he's an academic type because he threw in some of those big old 50-cent words. And I'm just going, what the hell does that mean? And I have to go and look it up, because I've never heard that before. The one word, I forget what the word is offhand, but basically it meant the rumbling in your stomach. Why couldn't he just say he could hear the rumbling in his stomach? No, he had to use this word that I'm going, what the hell does that mean? So I looked it up and found out, basically it means the sound of the rumbling of your stomach. And there's a few other times where he'd throw out these long words, and I'm like, even the academics I know don't speak like that. Because I do know a few that are, academics. But they don't speak like that. They speak like regular people because they want people to understand them. So there were a few times where they'd throw in these words and I'd be like, what? I don't understand. But for the most part, it's pretty accessible. Very interesting. Definitely an adventure if you are of the type who likes Jack London type stories. This one would be a good one. Life of Pi I haven't actually read, but I've seen the movie, so I kind of have the gist of what it's about. Yeah, it's that whole isolated thing where in Life of Pi the guy sees tigers, right? And here he's seeing seals. But then that's the difference between India and Canada. So, what was the other one it talked about? Into the Wild. Into the Wild. Is that the one about the mountain climber? I'm not entirely sure what that book is. It's one I haven't read. I'd probably be like, oh yeah, if it's one I had read. But I believe that's like a survival story with like a mountain climber kind of guy. And I can see that because it's a survival story. I think if you would like survival stories, you're interested in Canada and the Arctic, you like Jack London type stories, because I really got a Jack London feel from this. If you're interested in a little tiny morsel of Inuit culture, there's a little bit of it here. Yeah, I thought it was really good. I think I gave it 4 stars. There were a couple things that didn't quite make sense to me, and I don't know if it's just because I'm not familiar with, the culture that they're talking about, or if it's just something not quite there that was being said. There was a quote in here. I never really liked it, and I don't know that it necessarily pertains to anything that I've talked about yet, but he's complaining about how, like, his cell phone doesn't work and stuff. And he says, phones are like little pocket parasites that feed off of Wi-Fi and the caress of human thumbs. And basically, his phone quit working once he left Winnipeg and flew from Winnipeg to this village. And yeah, so, I mean, even with that, he couldn't communicate with his phone. He couldn't... The lack of Wi-Fi was pretty bad. Even when he could find Wi-Fi, like in his hotel, they call it a hotel, basically it was a rooming house. He had a room in this house that they were calling a hotel. I would say bed and breakfast, except they weren't providing food. The Wi-Fi there was so sporadic and so slow that it sounded like it was slower than what dial-up used to be. I remember those days. I occasionally have days where our Wi-Fi isn't great. Like right now I don't have it at all because the power's off. But right before that it slowed way down. So I knew something was coming. And then poof, the power went off, and so there's no internet and there's no TV, and it's just, what do you do? I might end up listening to a book, but I mean, it's just after 10 p.m., so I don't want to get into a book and then have to, stop in the middle and go to bed or whatever. I might go to bed early, I don't know. I was going to finish making dinner tonight, because I baked some donuts, and I was going to glaze them and stuff, but without light, it's kind of hard to work in the kitchen. And I don't want to open the refrigerator any more than I have to because, I don't want the cold to get out because I don't know how long this is going to last. Yeah, we're going on 2 hours now because it happened a little after 8. So at least an hour and a half, close to 2 hours with the power outage. Yay! Anyway, that's what I've got for now. I thought I'd just make a quick video while I had nothing better to do. Nothing to take my attention away. So hopefully I don't have to make any more videos in the dark. I will see I don't know what I've got coming up. That's the most recent arc I've got. The next one, there's another one I've got that I read. Actually, I don't have the arc anymore. I gave it away. For Mother Tongue. That one I believe comes out in September as well. And the one for Forever Young just came out in May. Unless I have those two backwards. I think Forever Young came out in May, which I really liked. Mother Tongue, meh. And I've talked about it before in a couple other videos, so y'all know I wasn't thrilled about it. The latest books I received, I talked about in the last video I made. And they were the 2 from Catriona Ward that I apparently want to give away. It's the only thing I can figure. I don't know why else I would randomly just receive 2 books in the mail. They weren't from Goodreads, so... And I know I've entered some giveaways and things through Facebook, so I'm guessing it's from one of those. But like I said in that video, there was no note or anything, so I don't know. I never received any email talking about it. So, surprise, here's a couple books. Do I have anything? I have one on order. and I think it's a middle grade. Something about like the 13-story treehouse or something like that. Um, I'm doing. I'm participating in this huge reading challenge on um, Goodreads through NBRC, which is Nothing But Reading Challenges, and it's called Tower Teams. And one of the people on my team has a child that she was looking for recommendations. And she said, right now we're reading this book, and I'd never heard of it, but it sounds really fun. And so I ordered it because, of course, my library doesn't have it. And they did away with the statewide interlibrary loan, which really sucks because I was able to get so many things that way that now I can't. And that's frustrating. I was talking to the librarian, and I said, I really miss that. She goes, I do too, because, sometimes there's something you want, and our library just doesn't have it, and they can't buy every book. And because I was requesting a book, and because I had searched the library website and I couldn't find it. And it's a book that's got like alternate titles. So I searched under both titles. I searched under the author. Could not find it. And I said, I'm looking for this book. And she types it in, comes up. And I'm like, seriously? I searched and searched and searched for this thing and couldn't find it. Unfortunately, there wasn't an audiobook for it. But I found the audiobook on, if I downloaded the Kindle version of the book for 99 cents, then I could get the Audible audiobook for $1.99. So I went ahead and did that because I had like $4 worth of credit on Amazon. So that was enough to cover it. And I'm just like, man, things I go through to read a book for a challenge. But I did order this other book, and I'll be getting here any day now. Of course, I don't think I've received anything saying it's been shipped yet. But I think it's supposed to be getting here, like, in the next couple days. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that shows up. Other than that, I really don't have a whole lot to talk about. Hopefully we can go run errands and stuff tomorrow. We were going to go last week and ended up with a flat tire. Well, actually, no, we were a week ago. More than a week. Let's see. A week ago, last Thursday, we were going to go. And then I backed out on my driveway and my tire was flat. So I made it all the way next door to the funeral home. Saw it was a flat tire. Pulled back into our driveway. And I didn't know who to contact. So after a week, I finally figured out who to contact. And the guy came and he looked at it and he says, I don't trust your spare because it looks like there's a nail in it. Let's try filling it with air and see what happens. So he filled the flat. He says, I don't see or feel any leaks. So we'll just, leave it at that. He didn't charge me. Thank God. But he directed me to a place in town that I didn't even know existed. And so we went over there and said, yeah, I need to get a tire. Must have been Thursday. Because it was Friday. I sat there. It was the next day. I sat there at the tire place for an hour while they put the new one on. And the tire itself is $124 in tax and everything. It's like $133, I think, is what it ended up being. $132.99 because they can't make it an even amount, which drives me nuts. Anyway, long story short, I'm broke. I had to buy a tire that I wasn't expecting. So now, we were going to go today and go to the job office and everything, but by the time William woke up, it was too late to go, and so we're going to attempt tomorrow. Hopefully we can find jobs, like, really fast and whatever, because I don't think we'll survive July otherwise, and I don't think we can handle living in this house with no electric. We got to have the fans going. We just have to. And so we'll have to see what happens. But because he's over 21, I can't even apply for like welfare funding or anything because he's over the age of majority. So that sucks. We can't help you. We know you need help, but we can't help you. Yay, thanks. So what is this for if it's not to help somebody who's in a situation like this, right? Anyway, it's not like we want to be on it. I'm doing what I can, but I can't get anybody to give me an interview. I can't get a call back when I apply places. It's like they just ignore the fact that I applied. And I saw that the library is hiring again, and I put an application in February, and they said it should still be on file. So I think while we're out running, since I got to run into the library anyway, I will ask and say, do you still have my application on file? I'm still interested. And maybe I'll get an interview this time. Library would be my ultimate job because, I mean, I love books. And I know I can't just sit there and read all day. Yeah, there's stuff to do. But with the number of books I do read, I think I would be able to give at least some suggestions if people asked. I'm relatively familiar with a wide variety of books. So, I used to work in bookstores. I know how to shelve books, obviously. So, why am I telling y'all this? Because y'all know. But I can't seem to get them to understand that I would like to work there and I would like an interview so I can tell them I want to work there. And that I've applied a couple different times and I've never yet gotten any kind of interview. So that's kind of disappointing. But fingers crossed. So anyway, that's all I really have. I'm just rambling at this point because I have nothing better to do. Sitting here in the dark. So I guess we'll leave it at this. So remember to do all the YouTube-y things. Comment, like, share, subscribe. Ring the bell icon to be notified of future uploads. Maybe. I always have to put that maybe in there because I know there's stuff that I've clicked the notification bell and I don't find out that stuff's been uploaded for people. Because it doesn't come up. And then 6 months later, poof, there's a video, and then I've lost 6 months, and I have to go back and rewatch everything, which is frustrating. And I never know if it's because YouTube's just not showing it to me, and they think, oh, I watched this thing that popped up randomly, so that must mean I want to watch nothing but that now. Because, how sometimes you'll get to the end of the video and you can't change it right away and the next thing starts playing. Well, it thinks that's all I want to watch is whatever that next thing is. And most of the time it's stuff that I wasn't even paying attention to because I just couldn't get to change it in time. And I thought, oh, let's see what this is. Oh, okay, whatever, just let it play. Well, apparently that's what YouTube thinks I want to watch. If only it worked that way with my videos. And people would just watch it because it popped up and then get nothing but my videos, And sometimes, maybe I'm interested in whatever that thing is and I'll watch another video about that topic, but that doesn't mean that every video I watch, it has to be that topic. There's a reason I subscribe to certain people and click their little bell icons to say, hey, I want to watch more of this. And yet, I don't get those. I get all this random stuff that I don't respond to. So, like I say, click the bell icon to be notified of future uploads. Maybe. Anyway, you know what to do. And we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.